Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of FGC Behind the Smoke. We are your podcast hosts. I'm Adamo.
And I'm Boris.
And today we have a special guest. Today we have Will Brodie, who is a firefighter in the lower mainland of BC. He's also part of his department's critical incident stress management team. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about firefighter mental health, along with a bunch of other stuff, and also some things that aspiring firefighters can be aware of before maybe starting the job.
Yeah. What's up, Brodie?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, buddy.
Yeah,
we really
happy to have you.
appreciate it. So I'll just read off your introduction here, buddy. So Will Brodie was born and raised on Vancouver Island. He began to take interest in firefighter mental health after a traumatic call he attended while working as a volunteer firefighter in the small town that he grew up in. He was a volunteer firefighter for 6 years while completing a bachelor's in business at VIU and managed a pawn shop in Nanaimo. So he was a bit of a pawn star.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah. He was hired as a career firefighter in an apartment here in the lower mainland of BC in 2016. And he started on their department's critical incident stress management team in 2018. He currently is a team lead for the department's CISM and peer support team and sits on the BCPFFA Mental Health Subcommittee. So quite the resume in that. That's awesome.
A lot of help getting there.
Yeah.
And still a lot of work to do. So
You know what? There always is, right? But you know what? It's such an important thing, just being that person that people can kind of come to when they're in that kind of a situation or they're struggling a bit. To be that support for them, I think is super important. And yeah, we're really thankful to have you on the podcast, buddy.
yeah, thanks boys.
So you were a volunteer firefighter on the island.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you started there?
We're being 20 years old.
So you're young.
Yeah, super young. Just wanted to give back to my community at the time. Grew up playing hockey and lacrosse, so always enjoyed that team environment. And then I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So I was going to school for business. I didn't really like that too much. And then I was just looking for outlets, different things to do. And I would always been interested in joining the volunteer fire department there. One of my buddy's dads was super involved. So I talked to him, applied there just to kind of help out in the community. And then, yeah, that's where my fire career started.
Awesome. Were you like hooked right away once you got into that volunteer firefighting? Was it kind of like a sudden awakening of like, oh, this is sweet. Like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, man. It was so much like the hockey and lacrosse kind of dressing rooms and the way that the people there support you and push you to be better. And then also just like the training and going and actually like helping people out. And then
Yeah.
of course, like when you get your first fire and stuff, you're like, man, this is cool.
Yeah.
How can I make a career out of this?
Absolutely,
Right.
man.
Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so much fun, man. When you get that first fire and you're like so amped up and you're like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And then, yeah, you're a volunteer firefighter in a small town and you get a structure fire at 3 a.m. in the winter. So the front windshield's all iced over and you have your head out the window like Ace Ventura. You're driving to the hall to get on the truck. It's like,
We actually just had our last episode. We were talking about catching hydrants and climbing on roofs when it's like minus 10, minus 20 outside.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, I think I was talking in that episode about I caught a hydrant at a fire and it was middle of winter and it was like, yeah, probably like -5 or something like that. And it just didn't have like a good seal and I got covered in water
Right, yeah.
for like the rest of the time. And then of course, like I have to shut down the hydrant at some point and I'm like, oh. So then I go shut it off. I'm just like freezing cold. My gear is like stiff and frozen.
Man, I wonder how like those guys out east do it.
oh,
Like,
yeah.
Oh man.
Brutal cold, or even like the prairie boys, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're so much harder than we are.
Yeah,
in the West
year
Coast
after
here.
year.
So-
Yeah.
Dude,
that's great.
I just saw a picture on Edmonton Fire's Instagram. They had a fire and then they took a picture of a couple of the firefighters and they looked like snowmen.
yeah.
Like they were just covered in ice.
Just put a little carrot on them. Yeah.
Got the big icicles coming off their mustaches and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Even like down south, man, like working like plus 40.
Yeah.
We're kind of lucky here
Yeah.
I wonder what would be worse. I think that would probably be worse, honestly.
where you can't take the, I don't know. You're like, you like if you're wearing turnouts, you're kind of expecting heat, I feel like.
I guess.
Whereas, I don't know, snow, especially catching a hydrant, like you get soaked before you even get to the fire. So,
Yeah.
like,
That's true.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
So you grew up on the island, eh?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
I grew up in a small town of Cedar. It's just south of Nanaimo, maybe a town of 5,000 people, blue collar town. Lots of, hardworking folk there. A lot of mill jobs, a lot of farms.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Did you move here once you got the job, or did you move here first and then?
I was living on the island and applying to jobs mostly in the lower mainland.
Mm-hmm.
Way more opportunity here for
sure.
a job, right? Especially at that time. Now Nanaimo has done a big hiring and all that, so there's more opportunity on the island nowadays. But in between 2010 2016 when I was applying, it was like the lower mainland was where all the opportunity was, and super thankful to live here now and work here now. And
Especially because you live in like the best city.
yeah,
Port Moody, baby.
Yeah.
Represent.
yeah, God's country there. So it's good. So yeah, I ended up getting a job offer and then moved over after that. I had about 2 weeks to find a place, and I was a naive island boy, not knowing what the housing market was here. I was living on a 80-acre farm, paying $300 a month,
Yeah.
living with my two buddies in a full house.
You can do that here, can you?
Come over here, I get a basement suite, 600 square foot basement suite, $1,200 a month. I was like, man, what is going on
A
here?
little bit of a culture shock, eh?
It was, yeah. Definitely.
But that's okay because you had the job, right? So
Yeah, that's all that matters at that point. Right?
exactly, yeah. In your bio that I just read there, like you worked at a pawn shop for a bit.
Yeah, working at the pawn shop, you get people from all walks of life coming through there. Thankfully, my boss and the owner of the shop, Jonesy, great guy. He ran a very above board shop. Like pawn shops often get a bad reputation, but in Nanaimo, like we had the best reputation. We worked super close with the RCMP and following all the city bylaws. It didn't benefit us at all to take stolen goods.
Right.
And actually like 70% of items that are pawned are actually picked back up because they're like the first financial institution. And
Yeah. It's like for people who have their stuff stolen, you mean? Like they...
No. Just people that need financial assistance.
Oh, I see what you're
So
saying.
like they'll come in, they'll pawn their watch or whatever, and then they'll come pick it up. So like 70% of the goods that would come in as a pawn were actually then that person would pay to get it back out.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So it could even just be like a blue collar guy working a job, and then bills come up. He can't pay his crew, so then you'll pawn some of his equipment, pay his guys, get paid from the job, and then
Come
get
back
his
and
stuff
grab
out
it.
of the shop.
Oh, interesting.
Do they pay way more? Like, is it a premium when they come pick it up, or?
There's different. This is a pawn shop podcast here. It is interesting though. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, like the interest rates are high at the pawn shop.
Makes
so
sense. Though,
if you the longer it's in, the more you pay. If you get your goods within a week, it was less. So
Makes sense. It's a business, right?
Yeah, but what you mentioned earlier, like, every job you've done in the past relates to the fire service somehow. You know, customer service, dealing with people that are down and out. It's pretty cool to see that, every job you do can somehow turn into a firefighting experience, really.
Absolutely. So were you applying specifically for the Lower Mainland? Like, was it your goal to kind of move over here, or were you just kind of applying everywhere? And
I just wanted a job, man.
Yeah.
Anywhere. And then,
And so if you don't mind, are you comfortable with us talking about what led you kind of down the road towards wanting to get into the mental health side of things?
Yeah, for sure.
Because you were saying that you had a traumatic call that kind of, in a way, I guess, sort of inspired you to go down this route.
Definitely. So when I was working as a volunteer firefighter there, we had a pedestrian struck right in front of the high school that I went to as a kid. And at the same time, there was a PAC meeting going on. And when we arrived on scene, we realized that the patient was actually the son of one of the captains on the job there.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then, so like right away, things are heightened. It's a young kid, right? 14, 15 years old. And then you go start working on them. And then the PAC meeting comes out, and the mom is in that PAC meeting and ends up coming over, seeing that her son that's being killed. And just like her reaction to that, and me being 24-year-old kid at the time, really affected me. I was going to university and was just like in a funk, right? I didn't really understand what was going on. My heart goes out to the guys that are still working in the communities that they live in, right? Like that's so hard, especially like in the small towns and stuff. Like every call you go to, you're probably running into somebody either like immediately or just removed from. So that's tough. And I was super thankful. In the fire service, our crews are always the ones that are there for us. Like the peer support was great. It really galvanized our department in a way, right? Like it was a super difficult thing to go through, but at the same time, it really strengthened us and in ways. But yeah, like we didn't have the resources at the time, right? So I was like 2 weeks just in my room, didn't want to go to school, didn't want to go out or do anything, and didn't really understand what was going on at the time. So I was able to go into like a walk-in counselor service that I was connected with, and that helped out. But yeah, just kind of pushed that to the back burner and ignored it for a long time. Realized like there's a lot of kind of destructive habits that I was getting into as a young man in my pursuit of becoming a firefighter, and just like making that my goal.
Did anyone check in with you during those 2 weeks when you were just kind of shut in on your own and just being, back to yourself?
The one thing that I did find solace in was going to the fire hall. There's one hall there, nice gym upstairs, and I would just I felt comfortable being there. Like it was the place that I wanted to be, right? And then other members would drop in every now and then, have like a chat either about that call, what's going on, how are you doing, right? So yeah, a couple of really good mentors and friends there. The chief at the time, Chief Percy Tipping, he was great in connecting us with what resources he could, and yeah.
Yeah, I had kind of a similar call where there was a cyclist. He was riding his bike with his wife and he got run over by a dump truck. And we were first on scene and the wife's freaking out. We pull the guy out from under the truck and we're working on him. And I had just gotten married 2 weeks prior to that. And I remember just seeing the wife and being like, holy crap, like if this happened to me, this is how my wife's going to react. I remember just right then and there, I was like, this call is going to stick with me. And then the guy's brother showed up on scene too, and he was of course like losing it, right? Yeah. I took a bit of time off actually after that call because I started getting this weird anxiety. My wife would be like out walking around in Port Moody, and then I'd be like, man, she's been gone for like 45 minutes, should be back by now. And then all these weird thoughts of like, well, did she get hit by a car or something like that, right? Started to happen. And I had some traumatic calls before throughout my career that maybe affected me a bit, but not to that extent, right? And so, yeah, I ended up going out to counseling and getting help that way. But definitely, like the peer support from the guys at work was huge, right? Like just those guys, man. Like it really shows you how in the fire service we're almost like a family. Well, we are a family, right?
Yeah.
And like they were checking in on me. They knew it really bugged me, and it's good to have people like you, the CISM guys, who truly care and like want to make sure that their members are doing okay. So I thank you for that, man. I tip my hat to you for that.
That's the worst calls are the ones with kids or family members, right? Oftentimes it's not even so much like the patient and the things that we see. It's that like emotional impact that we get from these calls, right?
Totally.
Absolutely.
We talked about actually last episode about, what are some things that you don't look forward to the fire service when getting in. And it's one thing being able to, take gore in or take on crappy things to see, but it's everything else, right? The sounds, the smells, the family that's there. It's just so much more to it, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me at least, that's one of the things that I find to be tough is when you're seeing family members who have, just saw their loved one die or whatever, right? And that's the tough part, right? Mm-hmm. It's not so much like you were saying, Boris, like the gore or like the actual person who's passed away. It's what's going on around that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it really, I think it's normal for people to kind of relate it to their own family, right? And be like, man, like if this happened to me, like this is what's going to happen to my family. This is how they're going to feel. And it's tough, right? It's tough sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's really good to be able to recognize that, which we're gonna touch base on here. But recognize when something's bugging you, right? And and finding the help for it, right? So,
quick question for you: what would you do if that happened now, and you're not a 24-year-old kid anymore?
Yeah.
What would you do differently than what you did back then when you were 24 and when you saw that?
Well, thankfully now, like with our benefits, we have access to counselors. And so I have a person that I go and see regularly now. Not necessarily that there's anything going on, just like someone I can check in with. And they are familiar with how the fire service works. I reached out to them off the First Responder Health website. So it's the database of clinical counselors that have like the occupational awareness training for firefighters in BC. And I basically said, I feel pretty healthy right now, which is a great way to get a baseline with them. And then if I do have another traumatic call, which is going to happen, I'll be coming and see you and we can talk about that now. And then also have a lot more tools in the toolbox or cards in the pocket to kind of deal with stress and know myself a lot more on how my stress reaction and how I am, right? Like if I'm gonna like shut down and shut people out, or like a hypervigilance, or like the brain fog is one that I definitely struggle with, is just retrospectively looking and being like, hey, I was not myself during that time period. And it's hard to see sometimes. So my first move definitely would be like professional help. The peer support teams are huge and like a cornerstone in the fire department, but we're not healthcare professionals, right? Like we're not mental health professionals. So we're there, connect you to resources, be there to support you, know that you're supported is huge, right? Yeah, that's where I'd go.
So just to talk about the CISM team, when you decided that this is something that you want to be a part of for your current department, how does that work? Do they put you through a course, or like how do you go about joining that team?
Yeah, so at the time, I was nominated by the current team that was in place to join. Just talking to some of the guys, I knew my experience with mental health, just going back to when I was a volunteer, like we went and got some CISM training after that call and made mental health more of a priority, and definitely took an interest on it. And like we always want to help, right? Like I think part of your personality in becoming a firefighter is like you want to help people.
Yeah.
And then how can then you help the helpers, right? And it's a natural thing for a lot of us to want to get into, right? It's a burden though. Like there's a ton of responsibility that comes with it. So then when get on with the career department after a couple of years and talking to the guys about my experiences, and they thought I'd be a good fit for the team, then was sent to get some training through the ICISF, which is the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. So to get training on how to do like a diffusing and a debriefing for individuals and groups in crisis, and kind of go through what it entails to do like a diffusing or a debriefing with the crews, and to do it in a way that helps them deal with stress and be able to get back to normalcy sooner rather than later, kind of deal.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So you guys are basically, you're able to provide people with resources, right, if they need it. So like say, for example, we're at the same department and I'm having a tough time or whatever, I can call you and you can at least kind of guide me in the right direction as to where to go.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
What are some like subtle signs that like a call could be affecting you like after the fact without really fully realizing it at the time? Because like you said earlier, like you might change a bit and not even notice, right? Yeah. So what are some ways that people can be kind of more cognizant of that?
Definitely like right after a bad call, in my experience, it just felt like that feeling of like numbness or agitation, just kind of pushing people away. Like you get back to the hall and you just kind of feel numb and disassociated, and you're just like, hey Cap, that was a tough call. Like let's get the CISM team in here. Like let's talk about that one. And for me, talking about it always helps out quite a bit, and then going from there. Yeah, being angry either on how you're being treated after the call. So I had a bad infant cardiac call, and the next day I want to come back to work. I want to be back on the rescue truck. I'm a new driver. I want to be back on the horse. And the captain's like, no, like we're going to put you on the Quint this set, just so you're not exposed to necessarily another traumatic event in a medical nature like today, right? You don't want to like back-to-back bad calls, right? Mm-hmm. It's a chance on the engine, but on the rescue, like you're going to everything. So,
right.
And then just like protecting me, I didn't understand like fully at the time. And I was just like angry and frustrated. And I was like, man, like I want to get back on the horse. Like I don't want people to think that I'm weak and I can't do this job. And then it was once again looking back and be like, they're trying to help me. Like
totally.
They don't think that I can't do the job. They're just in that brotherhood and sisterhood. Like we look out for each other, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the best thing that we can do. And that captain, once again, like he's trying to help people that are helping. What can he do? He can shuffle the deck. He can put people on different trucks or whatever, right? So
like we said, like sometimes other people are going to recognize it before you do, right? So by him doing that, he's just trying to protect you for a bit kind of thing, right? Like let you maybe like decompress and process your thoughts and stuff like that surrounding the call, and then give you that time to just kind of heal, right?
And notice that brain fog in you before you did.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. And some other subtle signs could just be like your sleep being disrupted, or just like flashbacks from that call, especially like right afterwards. You can be thinking about it like on your drive home or whatever.
Totally.
Right? So it stays with you, and knowing like your support network and having that in place before you do go to those bad calls, right? Like, so is it your significant other that you can talk to, right? And it's important to lay down those ground rules before you get that bad call, right? Like is your partner somebody that you're able to be like, hey, like these are the gruesome details of this call that I need to like get off my chest. And they might be like, yo, that's too much for me. They also might want to just be like, hey, come home, be like, hey, we had a bad call today. So if I'm a little bit different, it's not you, it's a bad call that I had, and they might not want any details, right? So
yeah, we were talking about that actually on one of our other episodes.
Yeah, what does your family need to know?
Yeah, about you being in the fire service. And Boris and his wife do a really good thing where when he gets home from shift, she'll ask him like, how was your day on a scale of 1 to 10? And Boris, maybe you can touch on that. But.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Adamo, like 1 to 10, if it's a bad call, I say 8, 9, 10. And then she just knows to leave me alone, gives me space, let me do my own thing that day. If there's something that might bother me, she kind of keeps it until the next day or whatever. Yeah, just basically gives me the space.
Yeah, so, which is, I think that's such a good system that you guys have because, it's no shock that divorce rates are higher within like the first responder community, right? I can't help but think that plays a big role in that, right? Like the things that you see, the things that you do on shift, and then you're coming home from a shift. If you don't really know how to decompress or how to process it, right? And like you were saying, like, you get agitated, brain fog, all this kind of stuff, you kind of seem like you're not really there, right? You kind of seem absent when you're at home. I think recognizing it and like having more awareness of it is going to be a big part of like saving relationships as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then the stoicism within the fire service, right? We got that great series, the BC Occupational Awareness Training that Blueprint has put out with Dr. Duncan Shields and Dr. David Kuhl and Matt Johnson there.
Yeah, we're actually watching that in my hall right now as a crew. We pop it up on the TV and it's really good. Like the whole, coming out of the theater with squinting, and I don't know if you listen to that metaphor that he was talking about, and then just how you just keep squinting the entire time you're at home, even though you don't have that defense mechanism in place that's needed type of thing. So you actually recognize a lot of things that.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so much great information in there. They've got the second year out for that now. And they've done an excellent job in getting information to us. The one that really sticks to me is that like stoicism. And when you're on a call and those tones drop, right? Like you put up a shield, right? But then like you have to be able to come back to the hall, put down that shield, but you still do, like when you're at work, you still do have a little bit of a defense mechanism up, right?
Yeah.
But like when you come home, you want to be able to like be that safe space, right? What kind of relationship are you going to have with your partner or your kids if like you're this like stoic, I'm not going to feel anything firefighter, right? Like you got to be able to come home and be able to love and laugh and like do all those things that make life great, right? So
it's a great, what would you call it, documentary?
Educational series? Yeah,
it's a great educational series because I love how he says, you block out all the bad stuff, but then you go home and you block out all the good stuff as well. And it's not actually helping you. It helps you at work, but when you get home, you got to be able to make that switch, right?
Well, like you said, Will, too, it's like that defense mechanism, right? Like we do that to try and like protect ourselves, but then without realizing it, we almost like hurt ourselves in a way by doing that as well, because we got to learn how to like bring that shield down when we get home, right? Is there like anything in particular that like you do when you go home? Like do you and your wife have anything in place? Do you guys talk about your calls, or does she like point out to you like, hey, you're kind of off today, like what's going on? Or
thankfully my wife is also in healthcare, so she's been amazing support for me to be able to offload anything I need. For us, it's just like, oh, how's your day? Do you have any like bad calls or interesting calls or anything? And I always feel completely comfortable being able to say whatever's on my mind, whatever's bothering me. So that's awesome. Great there. Having techniques for when you do like come off shift is also good. Like if you're to bring that shield down and to be able to like actually like think through that, either at the end of shift, are you having a shower at the hall, or like do you take a certain route home where you're just like, okay, like this is me being able to take that shield down to do this, or do you get home, take the dog for a walk and be like, hey, this is just like my time to just make that shift and that like intentional shift to think about it, right?
Yeah. Do you exercise? I've heard people say that like getting like a really good workout, a strenuous exercise in after a bad call can help you out a lot. Is that something that like you guys recommend that people do?
Yeah, absolutely. Exercise is like one thing in the fire service that we can do, right? Like get a good sweat in. Stress and trauma, it's chemicals in your brain and in your body. How can we help process that? How can we get faster? And it's like get a good workout in, get a good cry in if you need it, right? Whatever you need, right? Like I'm a crier. Like if I need to, I'll have a good cry and I'll feel like way better afterwards.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing, is like you have to allow yourself to like feel the emotions that you're feeling and just like accept it. And like you said, like if you have to cry, cry. If you have to go punch a punching bag, go punch a punching bag, right? And just get that emotion out. I think I know for me personally, that's a big part of my own personal healing with calls is, going to jiu-jitsu or going for like a really hard workout after. But, I know people who are like some people who are struggling with PTSD and they just can't get the motivation to go and get a workout in, or, I have a really good buddy who's struggling with PTSD and like he has a hard time just leaving his house, right? Do you have anything that you would recommend for people who are struggling like that? Like what are some little ways that they can maybe start to work towards trying to improve?
Yeah, anyone that's diagnosed with PTSD would be like way above my kind of skill level. Yeah, thinking of that, like the difference between like a post-traumatic stress like injury. So you go to a bad call, but you're able to recognize that it was a bad call. You've suffered that trauma, but then be able to work through it is huge. Where it becomes like that disorder and it's debilitating, that's when like you're diagnosed with PTSD and turns into depression and turns into that like hypervigilance that it is not healthy, right? Whereas I imagine for myself, I know like I'm very like hypervigilant. Like if I'm going to a Canucks game, I'm on the SkyTrain or whatever, like I'm like kind of like on guard a little bit, right? Especially if I'm with my wife, I'm just like, okay, like where's the danger coming from, right? But I'm not so hypervigilant that I'm afraid to like leave my house, right? And yeah, like that's if you're struggling with PTSD, like reach out to your peer support team or get connected with a mental health professional to help you work through that.
Yeah, so that's where like your psychologists and psychiatrists and stuff like that's going to come into play, right? And like you were saying, so if somebody is at that point, they can reach out to their department's CISM and they're able to kind of guide them to those resources like you were saying earlier, right?
Yeah, and all those members on those teams should be vetted and they'll be confidential and greet you with empathy and sympathy and make sure that you're getting the help that you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some ways that aspiring firefighters can prepare for potential traumatic calls?
Just knowing what you're getting into, right? Like as an aspiring firefighter, know that like you're applying for a job that will like change your life in the best ways possible, right? But then you're also going to be going out, you're going to see people on their worst days. And that is the reality of our job. Getting out there, getting life experience, being able to deal with stress in a healthy way. Just applying to get in the fire service is extremely stressful. Financially, your way of life is affected, you're missing out on social events, and it's trying to like balance all that. So finding ways that you can outlet your stress in a healthy manner is great. And then taking rocks out of the backpack, right? Like we all have experiences going into the job, either as like a volunteer firefighter or stress at school, stress in the family, financial stress, like just finding ways that you can and deal with that in a healthy way, whether that's with a mental health professional.
Can you maybe just touch on that backpack analogy a little bit, just for the listeners that don't know what that means?
Yeah, so just compiling the stress, just all the different things that day to day or throughout your life that just like compound on things, whether it's trauma or issues in your childhood to being a teenager to being a young adult. And then finally you get on with the fire service and you go to a couple traumatic calls or even just one traumatic call and just right away you're done. You're tapping out, right? And that's totally fine, but just like knowing that like you're at that limit or you're close to that limit and being able to go and deal with those things, go and talk to somebody. Right?
For sure. Yeah. So like the stresses from your life previously before becoming a firefighter, if you haven't dealt with that, essentially what you're saying is like those are rocks in a backpack, right? And the backpack's getting heavier. And then when you go on that call, all of a sudden it's like your backpack's full kind of thing, right? So I think it's pretty common for a lot of firefighters to have previous stressors or traumas in their life. I think that's something that kind of almost draws us to this line of work because we want to help people, right? So a lot of us have been through that like traumatic childhood or whatever the case might be, and we get into this line of work because we want to be able to help people, and we don't want people to have to go through that kind of stuff, right?
Huge thing. I mean, for military guys like myself, that's a very big issue, right? Coming into this job with already, like you said, backpack full of rocks, right? Already being so heavy that like one rock will just topple you. So always something to look at. But you were saying earlier, getting that baseline with a psychiatrist, for example, or a counselor. Would you recommend to somebody trying to get into the fire service to maybe get that baseline before they apply to the fire service?
Yeah, absolutely. Finding somebody that you vibe with, that you can talk with openly and not feel judged it's hard to do, right? Like some people will go and they'll talk to a counselor and be like, man, that sucked.
Yeah.
But like it's not necessarily that counselor sucks. It's just like you have a different personality and you just don't vibe with that person. That counselor's great for somebody else, but it's not for you. But it takes work, and it is stressful in its own way on like putting yourself out there to go and like talk to multiple counselors and basically giving them a job interview and be like, hey, like, can I talk to you? Like, this is what's going on with my life. And it might be like the way that they phrase the questions or just the general feeling you get in that space with them, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really important point that you just touched on there, that you do have to find the right counselor for you, right? Because some people will go to a counselor and they'll be like, this didn't help, right? And it might not necessarily be that it's not helping. It's just that you didn't vibe with that certain counselor or psychologist, right? So I think that's a good thing for people to be aware of, that you do need to find that counselor that you kind of hit it off with. And if you don't hit it off with the first one or two that you check out, it doesn't mean that you're not going to find that one that really speaks to you, right? And also, don't just settle on the first counselor that you go see if it's not feeling right? You have the option to go and, like you said, basically almost interview them about how they can help you and see if they're like a good fit for you, right? I think that's really important to talk about, because I think a lot of people, they just go, okay, I need counseling, and they just go to a counselor and, you know, they're just not vibing. It's just not the right one. And then they go, well, this is BS. Like, this isn't helping me. This is ridiculous. Like, why would I do this again, kind of thing, right? Yeah. So I'm glad that you touched on that, about like finding that counselor that really speaks to you and that you can really like build a rapport and a relationship with. I have a question for you about the Loon Lake program. If you don't mind, would you actually just touch on Loon Lake a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the BC Firefighter Resiliency Program run out of Loon Lake with Blueprint, which is Dr. David Kuhl and Dr. Duncan Shields and UBC there. It's a 3.5-day retreat where you go, and it's like a peer-based system as well. We're saying that everything we do in the fire service, we're there because it's a family, and you're there healing with family. So you have you have a doctor there and another facilitator to kind of guide you through the few days on dealing with trauma and everything. But then you have that like group of firefighters that are all there that have dealt with trauma in their own way, and they're all there trying to heal, and you're all working towards the same goal. And you get a ton of great tools to help you either deal with trauma in your past or for that next call that you can help get through in a healthy way and have it not be debilitating, so that your life is turned upside down, right? You're able to carry on with a healthy relationship with the people in your life, right?
Absolutely. Nice. And is that like fully like confidential? You don't have to tell people you've gone to Loon Lake, or I assume like maybe your department would know, but that's all kind of kept between you and them, kind of thing?
It is all confidential, right? Like the list of people that are going to, that's all kept confidential. And then who knows, depends on how the route that you go through to have the program paid for. So if it's your union could pay for it, your city could pay for it, or you yourself could pay for it, depending on the value that each of those agencies sees in the program. I went through myself. I was able to deal with a ton of those traumatic calls that I talked about earlier, and realized I was like holding on to some stuff about those. And there's no way that I would have felt comfortable like sharing that with you guys today if I hadn't gone through that program. And I can say that it's an amazing program. I'd recommend any firefighter go through it.
If somebody does want to enter that program, how does that work? Like, is it based off of the availability, like how many people they can kind of take, and how do they decide?
Yeah, so there's 8 firefighters each session, and then they run multiple sessions throughout the year. You can either reach out through the website there, or on the BCPFFA website, or reaching out to your peer support teams to go through that. It is held right now just for career firefighters in BC primarily, but there have been firefighters from across Canada attend it.
Do any other provinces do something similar that you know of?
No, but BC is tip of the spear for a lot of the mental health stuff, and this program that they've done in association, they had a ton of help with Tony Speece, who is a military veteran and retired firefighter now, great guy, and then Steve Farina as well. Both helped get this off the ground, and now Australia is looking at it on how they can mirror this program. Other provinces are looking how they can mirror it. So what we have here in BC is huge.
And it's great that program has also helped you in a way that you can speak about it now and help others with, you know, being on the podcast here and anybody else who might want to have a chat with you. I think that's awesome.
On a lighter subject here,
Back to Pawn Stars.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about the fire service?
Probably cooking at the firehouse.
Nice.
I love it. Before I joined, I thought I was an exceptional cook, pouring out Alfredo sauce from a jar, overcooking chicken.
Better than undercooking.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So then, you join the fire service, and being a probie and like having to make muffins and stuff, right? Like you're like, man, I'm going to screw this up. And then you find some recipes, you get good at that, and you show off to your family at family events. You're like, oh, look at this chocolate chip banana muffins. They're like, cool, man. And then you get into the kitchen after the crews are like, okay, like, you know your stuff. We don't think that you're going to be a liability on a call, so let's get you into the kitchen. And then you start breaking bread with the guys. You start learning new recipes. You start making Alfredo sauce from scratch. You start cooking chicken properly. And then the guys there busting your balls and just having that like family style atmosphere is just like one of my favorite things about the culture. You see it throughout history, like people breaking bread together is just such a bonding experience. So
absolutely. And you know what, I would think that also plays a huge part in like decompressing after a call too, right? Just get in the kitchen with the crew and make a good meal, and you guys are joking around and, like you said, busting each other's balls, and and you're like learning how to cook. It's really cool, right?
And it's that like hour taking away your mind from something else, right? And just focusing on the task at hand, having fun, and it's like therapy on its own, right?
Yeah,
totally. Yeah. We actually have Mike Varga. He's a Vancouver firefighter. He's going to be coming on the podcast too, but he was like Master Chef Canada, Chopped Canada. Like he's, and all like self-taught. So, but we're going to be talking about like the importance of like the culture around cooking in the fire hall.
Cool.
Yeah. So
I'll be listening on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully drop some new recipes.
I was just going to say, we're going to make him tell us all of his best recipes. What's one piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring firefighter starting on this journey?
Don't give up. It can be a grind. It took me 6 years of fumbling my way through and how to get this job, and I'm glad that I never gave up on it. Just keep on going out there, taking courses, talking to these guys here. I have tons of great advice on how to get hired on with the fire service. Solid mentor to help you through to attaining the job.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. We just wanted to take a moment quickly to thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor is CanCon Construction. CanCon is located in Abbotsford, BC. CanCon specializes in heavy machinery for construction sites, such as backhoes, excavators, and so on. If you're looking to gain experience, or if you already have experience as an equipment operator and you're looking for a new place to work, we highly suggest CanCon Construction. They're one of the best in the business, and they treat their employees like gold. So check them out. You can look at their website at canconconstruction.com. The next sponsor we'd like to thank is Strike Recovery and Performance. Strike is located in Burnaby, BC. They provide physio, chiropractor, and RMTs. I've been personally going to Strike for a few years now, so it's really awesome that they've decided to sponsor our podcast. I've gone to other chiros and physios before, and nothing compares to Strike. Their head chiropractor was actually a chiropractor for the UFC for quite a while, so they have a lot of experience dealing with professional athletes. And as firefighters, you have the potential of getting injured, and they're the people to go see.
Thanks for coming down, man. It's been a blast.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, man. This is, like we said, this is such an important topic, and we're happy that you're able to come on and just talk about it a bit and bring a bit more awareness surrounding it. And thank you for all you do.
I appreciate you guys having me on and bringing light to the subject.
Absolutely. Thanks, buddy.
Nice.